Love all this socializing, but we have to. We're here to remember Toki, to honor her, to commemorate everything she went through and everything we learned from her. And we have a really exciting and I think very well versed program of speakers today. And this is just an initial welcome, but I also want to very much express my gratitude to the team that has produced this Toki's Legacy exhibit. It's really amazing. It's been a long time in the works. Karina Mikowski is our chief artist over there. But also, Reverend. He's the magician behind the curtain. But also Jaylyn and Lucy, and I don't even know all the
Sarah's back there too. Say Scott.
That happened. So it's been a real team effort, and it's come together. And whenever you get a chance, if not today, come on in some other time and just go down the branches, all the little places where you can find things out about Toki and her family, and about southern resident orcas and orcas in general, and just all sorts of fascinating information is right there. So, come back sometime. Oh, well, okay. I have a request to show some of it. So, all right, again, it says, so that's where you start. And it goes into some of the history of the capture era. Tiny tank for 53 years. That was not just the show tank, that was the holding tank. That was the only tank that she had for all these years.
And each page has different little bits you can dive deeper into the different topics. And soon we'll have this on our website and further links you can go to so you can spend hours and hours or days and days.
This was a plan to return her to a C-pen. And that awful day, August 18, 2023, when she passed away. I haven't even been all the way through everything here. It's all brand new, so there are surprises for all of us, and much to learn.
C-pen was near Bellingham, right?
I'm sorry?
The C-pen was near Bellingham, right?
Well, the first C-pen that I proposed, mainly as a kind of a demonstration just to show it's feasible, it can be done, was on Orcas Island at the long-lived Canaan's hatchery there. There was a place with the blessing of the owner to rope off an area that would have been a great C-pen, and we could have sprung into action and made that work. But then in 2022 and 2023, the new plan was on Cypress Island, which is another protected cove, and it was ready to go, set aside. There's just so much there. That's just a little tiny sampler of all the different ways that you can find out more about Toki and her family and about her life, her history. But we have a program here, so I'm going to get on with it. We are blessed and honored to have Raynell Morris here to give a welcome and a blessing for us, and then a talk later on. Raynell came down from Lummi. Raynell has a long history with Toki. I would say she was her friend.
Relative.
Relative, yes. Raynell advised presidents on Indian affairs and has been involved in much of the campaign and all of the groundwork that has to be done to prepare to bring her home, and even to go and visit her and to sing and drum and just talk to her. And so Raynell is a very precious person, all the way down from Lummi today for this, so thank you, Raynell. Thanks.
So whenever we do a gathering, in our way is to give thanks and to bless the people that are here to hear the good words and to bless those in our thoughts that couldn't make it. So if you wouldn't mind standing up, our way to pray is we raise our hand to Creator, to ancestors. We just simply say, ancestors, we're so grateful for your love and your guidance. We're so grateful for Mother Earth, for the water, the air, and all the beings that you blessed us with, the two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, the finned. We want to heal her. We know she's sick and we're sorry. We're trying hard. It's going to take each and every one of us standing together, working together to make that happen. Tonight we're here to honor the Whale Center for their new exhibit on our relative, Skelly Chatuna Tokate. So with this, we ask for your guidance and blessings, and we have so much gratitude for you, Aishka. Thank you, my friends. And please go ahead and have a seat. And just whale water for decades and decades with your brother. Fought for the Southern residents and still are. So out of love and respect, as I'm going around showing resident our documentary about her life, I'm calling on our advocates that have been there so long, like Howie. And when we wrap him in a blanket, it's love and respect. It's a Kuthamajan design blanket by 8th generation, so it's can't get more traditional than that.
Yeah. Where do I go from there? We will also be talking with Marcia Hinton Davis, who I believe posed as a trainer so that she could spend quality time with Toki. For 8 years, as I understand, Marcia went in to visit with Toki every day. And of course, they had to do their routines, but they had a lot of just personal time. And it was actually very amazing that it was on a documentary by Como TV, and I learned from Marcia all about Toki. How Toki actually felt toward her and how she felt toward Toki. So, are you audible, Marcia? Can,
I hope so.
yes, indeed. All right, we can hear you. So if you can give a brief introduction and then a talk 15 minutes later on.
I'm happy to. I'm very honored to be here. I wish I could be there in person. My name is Marcia. I was lucky and blessed to spend time with Toki. I met her in 1987, and the moment that I laid eyes on her, I felt just the most powerful, empathetic feeling I ever felt. I was a young woman at 22 years old and was very naive. But what I did know was that she didn't belong there, and there was no way I could change her circumstances. But what I could do was I could love her and be her friend and be there for her. So today is a very special occasion, and for many reasons, because Toki's legacy leaves us with important lessons and lasting impressions of what was, what could have been, and most importantly, she leaves us with the inspiration to move forward. For me, she'll always represent a powerful being that, despite her circumstances, which we all have to look at that and say, how could we possibly have brought her to such a terrible, small place? But that animal, that being, demonstrated the attributes that we tend to only equate with humans that we admire. There's a yellow heart that I made for Howard out of her wetsuit that I removed all of those things on, and I'll say them right now. And these are traits like love, grace, trust, empathy, kindness, beauty, humor, friendship, compassion, and most of all, in my view, forgiveness. In my time with Toki and Miami, I considered her my best friend. I protected, cared, and loved deeply. And over the years, I watched as crowds of people were absolutely enchanted and mesmerized by her. Not just her physical beauty, but by her sheer magic that she exuded. So many tourists came back from countries like Germany, Australia, the UK, year after year, just to see her and be near her. And many generations of South Floridians who grew up with her. Some people called her Lolita. That was not a name that we ever used for her. She was Toki, or Toki for us. On countless occasions, people would approach me and say, since they first saw her, they felt different in some way. Like she was awe-inspiring, spellbinding, and that they felt altered. It was like she was communicating a pureness of being that it wasn't something people experienced very often. And we call that, and still call that today, the Toki effect. And you are probably experiencing some of that right now at this very moment. But I came to understand that not only did Toki represent all that is pure and good, she reflects those things in all of us. She, people called me her trainer, and that's backwards. She was my trainer. She taught me the most important lessons I've ever had in my life, and she continues to do that. She inspires in us the same tenacity, positivity, strength that we require to be our best for the things that we hold dear, and not to retreat from our fears in challenging times. And there are many obstacles for her precious endangered family that many of you already know about. I'm in Florida, and I try to share about the Southern residents to everyone I see. all the time, and not many people know about it. So you're blessed to be there where you can make real change. You know, like the dams in the lower Snake River that are decimating their fish and their salmon. That's their vital food source. Like, we've taken their food from them. The diabolical factory trawlers who just leave waves of destruction and waste behind them. Their trails are visible from space on the ocean floor. I mean, her family's in real danger. Her mother, her assumed mother, I guess I should say, L25, or Ocean Sun, remains the matriarch of her pod, which Toki should have been in line for that role. She would have been the matriarch, and it breaks my heart to know this. But she remains to guide her clan through today's ever more dangerous waters. And there's only 73 individuals left in her extended family of JK and Elpod. They live on the razor's edge, you know, with their food dwindling and threats that they have, the threats grow. And despite the uncertainty in our current political, you know, situation, with regard to the environment, we have to remember that we are not powerless. You know, we can unite our voices, raise awareness about breaching those damn dams, choosing not to consume seafood, you know, through these destructive forces, calling our representatives, sharing on social media, all of these things. They seem like small acts, but together in growing numbers, we can make huge changes. And if we all share the stories of our family and these orcas, the more people will learn about them, fall in love with them, and be, you know, more inspired to champion their survival. And I'm just so grateful to all of you at Toki's Legacy, you, Howard, Susan, and your whole team. You know, thank you for including me in this, and thank you for building this beautiful exhibit for Toki Tate. And I hope everyone comes and sees this and donates as generously as people are able, and to the other important groups, you know, who protect these unique southern residents. You know, I'm just so honored to be here with all of you. I wish I could be there in person. My cat is messing with my computer right now. If there's any questions anybody has for me or comments, I'm happy to take them. I'm just very blessed and honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcia. We will have a Q&A later after Raynell and I give our comments. So stick around.
I will do that. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being there.
And I just, you mentioned this, but this is a very special piece of neoprene here. And Marcia would know better, because this was a part of a wetsuit that was Toki's play toy that Marcia would play with her and toss it out, and they'd play tug of war, and she would just sort of flop it. I don't know what all she did with it, Marcia would know. But this was touched by Toki. And so that.
That was her favorite toy, and I'll tell this quick story, and then I'll just sit and watch. But back in, like, I don't know, 1989, it was after a presentation, and it was hot out. It was in the 90s, and I unzipped my wetsuit down to my waist, and I was sitting there on the side of the little stage area with her. She was extremely interested in the wetsuit, looking at it and touching it a little bit. So I thought, well, let me just let her see what it feels like in her mouth. You know, she was very oral. So I placed the sleeve into her mouth, and she took it just in that front little bit where there's no teeth, and she sunk immediately into the water, pulling me into the water. And she very gently removed the wetsuit from my body. suit and just my booties on. And I had no fear at all. I was not afraid. I knew she just wanted that wetsuit. And she swam around with it. She passed it from her face to her pectoral, to her dorsal, to her tail. She kept it for hours. She would not give it back. I got in some trouble for that. Yeah, I wasn't normal. I wasn't the normal person they were used to. And I begged them to allow us to give her neoprene wetsuits because I think, and this makes me sad to say this, but I think that would have, it reminded her of the kelp that she probably played with as a child. That sensation of swimming with something like that. And so that was in 1988 or 89, and she kept that as her favorite toy. And of course, we replaced them over years, and even into the very last years of her life, that was her favorite thing, was the neoprene wetsuit. So I decided to cut that heart out of it and write all those attributes that she so courageously showed and gift that to Howard. So that's the story.
Thank you.
Can you pass that around?
Sure. Yeah, let's just pass it on. Well, that's a great way to start this event. And now, I would like to bring up Raynell again to give us a spiritual, traditional, beautiful rendition of who Toki is as a relation.
Well, I'll go from that and Susie too. I'm Laktamish, First Salmon people from right on the US-Canadian border. We have a lot of relatives on the other side. We've never recognized the border. And our late chief, Salif L. James, maybe some of you had the opportunity to meet him. He was my Exala, my teacher, and he is one that shared all the traditional stories of who Quithalmichan orcas are and why we call them our relative. Quithalmichan in our language means our relatives that live in the waves. So we looked at that as a species, just they live in the water, they're part of our family. And that was the claim that we made when we filed an intent to sue, was this is our relative, and under federal protections and laws, you're obligated to return her. And that started that dialogue. Howie and Ken and many others, for decades prior to that, have been working in campaigning to free her and bring her home. But it was different because of the indigenous connection and the kinship that we had to her, and that's what got traction. And through that relationship, through that family connection, when Miami Sea Aquarium sold and the new owner came on board, he himself was indigenous. And he was curious as to why when I first met him over a Zoom call, that I raised my hands like I did to Howard and said, Haishkasiam, thank you, my friend. And he got all puzzled and he said, I gotta ask you, what does that mean? I said, I'm giving respect and love to you for taking care of my relative. And I said, that's our way. And through the development of the nonprofit Friends of Toki out of Key West under Pritam Singh, we were able to arrange for 7 spiritual ceremonial healings that I led. So I got to spend quite a bit of time with her, and every time I was taught to do the same thing was to drum and to do this is your heartbeat. This is my heartbeat. This is your mother's heartbeat. This is the Laktamish people's heartbeat. This is your family's heartbeat. It's our ancestors' heartbeat. And then I would be told to be quiet and keep drumming. Because that's the way her people that have gone to walk with our ancestors together would carry messages through the drum to her. And then at a certain point, they'd tell me to quit drumming. And then I would go, in our way, cedar is sacred. So I always brought cedar boughs from Lummi. And we brushed people off from head to toe 3 times. The first time I was there, she didn't care about the drumming, she didn't care about the cedar, she didn't care about any of it. She just stayed in what they called her bedroom, kind of flat. Just non-responsive, and it broke my heart. And I was guided and said, she does know you. She is listening. She's just not trusting. So the second time I went, there was more interaction, more attention from her. By the third time, I always wear my cedar hat and I always wear a ribbon skirt in her honor. Coming up the Wells Stadium stairs, she sees just the top of my hat and she swims over. And that began, you know, the way we welcome each other. And I always say, how's my girl? And by that time we had a separate group of trainers and vets just for her. And so every week, even though I wasn't there to see her, I could call and say, how's my relative? Every week. And so I would bring Haishka gifts, just like wrapping Howie with a blanket. I would make and bring gifts for the trainers because I wanted them to know who her people are, how our customs and how we believe in raising hands and thanking them for taking care of her. Every time. The first time, a couple of trainers cried and just didn't want to say anything, then came over after and said, why do you bring us gifts? I said, that's her way, that's our way to thank you. You're the only one that she gets to see. So we are counting on you to bring that love and that attention to her. So we want to thank you for that. And by like the 6th visit, we made a documentary. It took 4.5 years of the campaign and filming. This didn't make it in the documentary for some legal reasons, but there's audio of her and I vocalizing with each other for 25 minutes. I would drum, we'd sing together, and I said, I'm gonna stop singing, it's your turn. And she would sing. I said, okay, stop singing, it's my turn. I said, okay, we're gonna sing together. And she loved music, and it's really true. When you're traumatized, that's kind of where your maturity and your age stops, right? So she was very childlike. She was captured when she was 4 years old. And that quality of her loving music and loving to play and wanting to be nurtured, you know, cared for, because she's a child, was really apparent. And we developed a great loving connection and friendship. And a couple of the trainers said, she's different when you're here. Can you come more often? And I said, I would love to live and just bring my little sleeping bag and sleep over there. But I said, I have to go through an awful lot to get to do ceremony with her. Sometimes it would take 3 weeks for approval. Even though it was always, you know, I never breached any of the agreements, never posted on social media, was not in the documentary. But they noticed, and she knew it. And so the documentary is called Resident Orca. It's streaming on Crave in Canada, and we've done the film festival circuit in the US and in Canada and in Chile. We're hoping that it'll be picked up by a streamer here in the US. We are with the Off Events distributor out of London. I have the permission, we have a tribal and an educational carve-out for screenings. So our Bellingham School District shows it to their 4th and 7th and 8th graders. And there's a curriculum written with that documentary. And we just started a new website. It's called Skelly Legacy Group. And I've asked the folks here to kindly post around the QR code. There's one right back here. It's this logo that was made by one of our tribal members. It was gifted to me. So it's Skelly Choctawnot. You scan that QR code, it'll lead you to our website. And what we're asking for action now is this administration is trying to strip the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And in that is included an ESA, which we know our Quidalwinton relatives are listed ESA, and our Finn relatives are listed endangered on ESA. So on the website, if you feel it in your heart and you're so moved to take action, we greatly appreciate that. Secretary Kennedy just visited Nez Perce, and I thought it was a meme, you know how they're going around about the administration, but it was real. He supports the bridging of the lower four Snake River dams right now. So pay attention to that, and if he can speak out for it, we can share that also with our elected state, local, and federal, that it's important to breach those dams. We need our Chinook salmon back. And it's not just because we're salmon people, it's for all people, and in particular our Quidalwinton relatives that are starving. The reason we hover at 73 is because the moms aren't healthy. If moms are unhealthy, they can't deliver alive calves, let alone calves that will survive a year. So we go up, go down, and it just breaks my heart. You know, I believe with Telequa carrying her babies, she's telling us there's not much time left. We need to take action sooner, work harder, speak loud. And what's keeping her alive, I believe, is her son. You know, that's how moms are. We grieve, but we also have a responsibility to our community and to our family, our survivors. And how many people know that the Southern residents came back into Penn Cove 3 days in a row? What do you think that meant? After 1970, they're on their cell phone. What do you think it meant? Anybody want to share?
Healing.
Exactly. That's our belief. It's what a good matriarch Ocean's son is, to lead her people after all she's been through, after what we've done to her daughter, what we've done to her family. She leads her people back here not once, but in again. And at one point, they are in the furthest they've been, and they come out there in a line. And she sends a mother and son back. And they're swimming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then they're called to the line. Then they all leave, like they travel together, right? As a family, next to each other. She forgives us. She's telling her people to forgive us. So now we have an opportunity to right what we've done wrong in a lot of ways. So there's the hope. If they have hope, then we can work together to save her family, save her people, save the salmon. And it's so important to tell her story. And when you go to our website, if you're associated with a university, a middle school, a high school, and you want resident orca screen, there's a tab on there to sign up. There's no charge to do it. We just ask that you sponsor the theater, the travel expenses to go. We've got University of Washington set up. We've got MIT has a branch in Oregon. They're set. We've got someone in California that have just reached out. And then, of course, Key West is really supportive there with her being kind of her captive place for over 50 years. And then MIT in Boston will be screening. So we're trying to do that and set up a meaningful tour where we can do that. But we think it's important that children know that children are going to be the ones that are going to be able to save Mother Earth and save Cologne and save salmon. We're trying, but we haven't made great progress. But they know we're trying and they watch us. And so I just want to thank you all, especially Susan and Howie and your team.
I just wanted to say a few words about what Toki's legacy is. And first, I also wanted to say something about Elpod coming into Penn Cove, that it was just Elpod, who is Toki's family, led by who we believe is her mother, who we really, it just, these things happen, and scientists have their beliefs, and others don't see it our way. I'll leave it there. That thanks to Mr. Al Lindemann, he found some photos of J-Pod in Penn Cove in the 1987 or 98, late 80s, I think it was late 80s. And we sent them to, they were orchids in Penn Cove that we sent to the Center for Whale Research, and they were J-Pod. So that is the first known sighting we've had of any southern residents in Penn Cove, but it wasn't L-Pod, it was J-Pod. And that's the only, in the 20 years we've been doing sightings, and all the years the center has been doing sightings, that's the only confirmed data we have of any southern residents being in. And no L-Pod sightings. And the way they did it, and they were observed by how many people?
125 altogether over you.
Yeah, and they were, and their actions were very telling. Anyway, I did want to thank Al for that historic sighting, which it's really, photographs. These days, everything we get is off phones like this. But so it's always exciting when we get a photograph like that that gives us old data that is really important. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what Toki's legacy is. And when Toki died, and we were all so shocked because it was the one time she'd been so healthy, and we were all focused on her getting COVID. It was finally happening. And for 25 years, we had 30, however many years we've been working on this. We were just expecting her to die any day, and I was scientist working with her, our veterinarian. We knew that I was in contact with them every week or two. And Marcia, our dream always was, wouldn't it be cool if we could actually work with Marcia and she could be her vet again? All these dreams were like coming true, and Howie got a call from a newspaper, and that Toki died, and you're like, no, that can't be possible. We just, we need to see what we're at, and said she was fine. And so it was such a shock, and we just thought, that's just going to be the end of it. But what was so surprising to me and inspiring was that Toki's, who is resilient, amazing spirit that over the 25, 30 years that we had met thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people around the world who Toki, through her special spirit that she had touched in so many ways, and people who wanted to help her, and then through that wanted to help her family. And who also, in her special way of loving us and forgiveness, also gave back and healed us while we were trying to help her, which was just amazed me, the number of people that she healed, young people who were having troubles, who found Toki, and Toki reached out to them and gave them purpose in their life and helped them. And people who stayed with her for all decades. And those people rallied when Toki passed. They were still there and became even more inspired and motivated and wanted to, they formed this community and they wanted to stay there and fight for Toki's family. Because in teaching about Toki from the beginning, when we went to Miami and tried to talk to people there where everything was a show, and the concept of Toki coming from a family who had those tight social bonds and who knew every individual in their family was just something they could barely comprehend. So we quickly realized to teach about Toki, we have to teach about the southern resident orchids and their social, their families and um, their cultural way of living. And as Ray Nelson, I mean, they are like tribes of the sea. They are our, our ancestors, and they are family. And so that's what we turned to doing. And when we formed Orchid Network, we taught about Toki and her family, and her family quickly became endangered, and that became our focus as well. So most of the people who cared about Toki equally cared about her family. And when Toki died, that fight for bringing Toki home became a fight for saving her family, for Toki, in honor of Toki and in memory of Toki. So we decided to put our efforts and our love for Toki into her spirit, and she had a way of bringing people together, unlikely people who would never be in the same room together, and get them to work with each other and accomplish impossible things. So that's what we want Toki's Legacy, our Toki's Legacy program to be. And this exhibit is part of that, but we also hope to grow it as a program of Orchid Network and to use it to do things like teach people and raise awareness about the connections between orchid and salmon and the need for healthy oceans and more salmon runs, bringing down the dams, for helping the southern residents survive for future generations, and to honor Toki by bringing her family back. We couldn't bring her back. Well, we did bring her back. I feel her spirit did come back to her family. We all observed that happening. And I feel her spirit is in so many people who fought for her over the years. And I'm seeing goosebumps right now. I feel her with us in this room. And she's been making strides, so I'm going to stop. But I feel that all of you here are here because of her. And so many of you are friends and with us today because of Toki and her family. And I just feel so grateful for that. And so many, Raynell, Marcia, Howie, people I would have never met because of Toki. And so we will keep will continue fighting for her family. So that's Toki's legacy. And I want to recognize all of our staff, and board. So I want them to come up. Karina, who doesn't want to come out behind the camera, or her art screen, or her computer screen, or the many things she did, but she is, I also want to mention the rest of the Toki's Legacy exhibit is on the Toki Ferry. There is this beautiful wall hanging is a huge mural on the Toki Ferry. So that's the maritime part of the exhibit. Trevor and Lucy are our co-coordinators through the Langley Whale Center. Stephanie is our program director, and Jalen is our development coordinator. She will be telling you about our auction very shortly and telling you what is on the screen over there about the amazing support we have been getting for this event, and we really appreciate all our donors. We have some board members here and some former board members here. Rachel Clark is back there. Fred is a volunteer and former board member, and Jim, former board member. Jill is a current board member. Anybody? Who else? Sarah, I'm sorry. My mind went right past you. Sarah is also of Langley Whale Center staff. I just said, did I miss any other staff? And then all of our volunteers who are here, raise your hand, because I know there are many in the audience as well. And I also wanted to mention Cindy Hansen, our education coordinator, worked on the exhibit. Am I missing anyone? And our staff obviously has really grown. Working Network started out with the two of us, and we now have about 16 staff. And we're going to be hiring an operations director if anybody knows of anybody. So we'll put that out there. And next year is our 25th anniversary, so keep your eye open for some special events all year long. We can't be that old, but we are. But we just want to thank everybody for coming today. I will let Jalen talk about the auction over there, including some really cool artwork done by some students in Hawaii. And just thank you all for coming and being part of this special day.
Well, thank you everyone so much for just being here. It really means the world to all of us at Orca Network, and just continuing the mission that we are working towards day in and day out. So I wanted to capture your attention for a brief moment to highlight, as Susan was prefacing, some of the beautiful artwork that we have. You'll see over on the back table, underneath the map, we have 6 paintings that were painted by young students in Hawaii, specifically out of Toki. We were reached out to by a teacher back there, I believe middle school, a grade school teacher, who had her students do this as an art project, and she's been hanging on to these pictures for about 2-ish years, and she just recently retired, and she wanted to make sure that we got them. So we have these available for auction. Starting bid on most of them is $10, and give as you wish. And they're really incredible pieces of artwork done by young people. And that's something that's so important to us here at Orca Network, is continuing to get the next generation of young people into the fold and to care about orcas and to care about conservation. So thank you all for helping to continue that. If you are interested in making a donation tonight, you'll see over here to my right, there is a computer screen set up that has a QR code on it. You are able to scan that QR code with your phone if you'd like to make a donation. All proceeds are tax deductible and they go towards Toki's legacy so we can continue to do events like this and continue to steward the mission of Toki and Tokite and continue the amazing work that we do to make sure all the Southern resident orcas can swim free. You can also make a cash donation if you wish. We have cash box right over there. So thank you all so much for being here. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you. Oh, yes, we also have an online auction that's coming up in October for those who are interested. And if you'd like to talk to me about it, happy to give you more information. But our online auction will be from October 14th to 28th. We are sourcing about 200 some items and gift certificates and experiences from local individuals and businesses and other organizations who care deeply, yes, about stewarding the mission of whale conservation in the Salish Sea. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out. There will be emails sent, and you should all be on the email list because you're in this room. So thank you.
Okay.
Don't forget to go back to Marcia, right?
Yes, we're gonna take a quick break.
Not sure taking it as home, so please.
Well, Marcia did her talk.
Right, but we were gonna do a quick
Q&A
break to
after.
wrap up.
Okay, 10-minute break, and then I'm gonna blow your minds. But I also want to mention that Renell came bearing gifts, which are those t-shirts, Scully Chuck to Nut t-shirts, that she has brought for us and for the Yale Center to give away. Is that? Yep, she confirms. So there they are. Find your size and have yourself.
I have one. They're all 2X, I believe, right?
Yeah,
they're all 2X.
Okay, they're all 2X.
Food's over there. Food's here.
Okay, we have some treats here, so get up and mix and mingle and
Hi there, nice to see you. Hey, I see you. Good.
where she belongs. Miles and miles of open ocean now before her. She is swimming to her family. Soon she will be greeted by the familiar sounds of home. Sweet, sweet home. She is home, where she belongs. She is well, she is whole, she is home. She is well, she is whole, she is home. She is well, she is whole, she is home, where she belongs, where she belongs. Years and years of waiting, there was no escaping, but now she has hope. All our hands are working to stop her heart from hurting. Now we can affirm and know that she is home, where she belongs. She is well, she is whole, she is home. She is well, she is whole, she is home. She is well, she is whole, she is home, where she belongs, where she belongs. She is home.
Toki, Ulysses, Corky, and the 55 plus orca that's in captivity. This song is dedicated to you. Out on the ocean swimming free, it's where I'm supposed to be. Not living my life in captivity. That kind of life is not for me. Take me home, where I belong, out on the deep blue sea, swimming up to 100 miles a day with my family. Take me home. You took me away from my family. You took me away from my home, where I'm supposed to roam. You took me away from my home. Take me home.
We don't want to keep you here all night.
You make me, I will.
Well, it is wonderful to see all this socializing and comparing notes. Great things. So what I want to do is give you a little bit of insight into Toki. She had a terrible life, as you can well imagine. As of August 8th, 1970, when she was brutally hurted with bombs in the water, which are crushing to the ears of whales underwater, and her whole family was herded into Cove, and she was just viciously ripped away from her family, netted, dragged onto a flatbed truck and driven down to Seattle and shipped off to Miami. And we have it from a first-hand report that she was traumatized, that she didn't eat, she wouldn't cooperate, she was in really bad condition, as you can well imagine any of us would be after that kind of terror. But she somehow rose above it. And that's where we start to see her incredible inner strength, her resilience, her I don't know, acceptance and ability to accommodate by being aware, by knowing what's going on, by seeing what the reality is, learning how to live that way. 10 years later, Hugo, who was another southern resident orca captured 2 years before she was, died because he bashed his head against the wall repeatedly, over and over, and broke a 5-inch thick plexiglass viewing window at one point, and died of a brain aneurysm. She lived through all of that. And her best option was just to continue, to go on. She knew the routine, she knew what was expected, she knew how to stay alive, how to get the fish, how to get the minimal care. And she showed the kind of gracious, I can't even describe how she was able to not just survive, but actually to, as Marcia can attest, to reach out, to engage, to become warm in a kind of interpersonal way. And it really was personal. It was Toki and Marcia. And they became dear, dear friends. And she had that capability. And I will attest right now that she learned that personality, that strength, that inner power and spiritual oneness from her family. That's how she was raised. That's how her mother brought her up and taught her how to be. She's a southern resident orca. So what that really means is that that's how they are. That's how southern residents live. That's how they are with each other. And that has been borne out by, well, there's evidence in the drone studies. Michael Weiss at Center for Whale Research talks about how in the last 5 or 6 years, when they've been able to have drones overhead, so they're looking down, they're seeing that just under the surface, which you never see from a boat or shore, they're all over each other. They're massaging each other. Their pectoral fins, their flippers, Those are actually big hands joined at the shoulder. So they're just sort of caressing each other all the time. You know, we see them, they go, phew, phew, and when they're under, they're just all over each other. It's just incredible to watch. And now they've discovered that they use kelp. They cut a length of kelp, 2 or 3 feet long, and they position that between two of them, and then they just kind of roll it up and down their bodies, back and forth. So they're showing affection for each other all the time. That's their default, is to show their love. So Toki was like that. She showed her love whenever possible, whenever anyone would accept it, like Marcia. And not that everyone did. There was some very bad management many times. In, let's see, it was about 2015, the owner who started the park sold it to a conglomerate in Spain, and his son, who was a poor little rich kid, was made general manager. Well, he was quoted at a Chamber of Commerce meeting saying, "I don't really like animals. I don't really want to do that." And he just quit one day. It was shortly after the Lummi Business Council declared it was their sacred obligation to bring her home. He disappeared. Could be related. But that kind of meant no management. The manager who was actually a vice president of the company, who was a general manager for 5 different parks from Hawaii to Miami. He didn't spend much time. So, in other words, it was really a kind of a free-for-all without any professional guidance or management. I don't even know what happened there. In about 1998, they moved in a team from a dolphin park in Fort Lauderdale that had been shut down by protesters. So they had a big chip on their shoulder. And they were harsh. It was shortly after that that Marcia had to leave, because it was not, they didn't like the way she was relating to Toki. So they were just really harsh. So she had to put up with all that. She had to live under those really harsh, adverse, bad vibes, bad management. Who knows? And then we heard about how the water quality went down, the fish quality went down, the veterinary care was in dispute, and they were arguing with each other. So she really has had to put up with a whole lot. And yet, in the spring of 2023, when finally Marcia and some other former trainers who had related well with her were able to come in and spend quality time, she responded. She loved it. She perked right back up. She became very gregarious, very engaging. She wanted to relate to them all the time. And so, she had it in her the whole time, even after she endured that incredible neglect and brutality for so many years. So what I have come to believe, and I can't prove it, but there's evidence for it, and there's logic, and that is that in her mind, she was a southern resident orca. She was an L-cod orca, and she knew it every minute of every day that she was in Miami. That was how she kept her balance, her equilibrium, her ability to greet each day, and when someone reaches out, when someone offers love and affection, she was there for it. She wasn't damaged. She was able to respond. She had that in her because she was still a southern resident orca. And one evidence of that is that she called out in LPOD calls right up until just before she passed. 53 years. And I'm going to play you a sample, but it's not very long because it was absolutely forbidden for anyone to even make a recording, much less show it to anyone or release it to the world.
And I got in big trouble for that.
Yeah, Marcia can attest.
I went there. I got in trouble all the time.
Yeah, yeah, well, Marcia smuggled out a phone recording of a few seconds. And, you know, I tried not to get her in trouble, but it's just too important.
It wasn't your fault. Not the first time.
Okay, this is just a very short example of the calls that she made. And I saw trainer's notes from the 90s when they were told if she makes those calls, give her a timeout, which means turn your back on her, which is punishment. So those have been analyzed, they are LPOD calls. So she was an LPOD worker her entire life in Miami. She was the daughter of, we believe, of 25 Lucian's son. She was raised right. And that's how she lived, and that's how she managed to survive all those years. And still be the incredibly gracious, wonderful, warm, playful, by the way. I think she would splash people every now and then. She would,
All the time.
she would kind of duck and hide and play hide and seek. I don't know what all, but she just loved
I
it.
can share a quick story,
Yes.
just about her and a pilot whale. So, this was probably in 1989, 1990. There was a pod of pilot whales that stranded in Cape Cod. It was on Christmas Day in a blizzard. Everyone perished except for one calf. And he was taken to, I think, New England Aquarium for a little while, and they were looking for a home for him. He had outgrown that place, and so this aquarium said, we'll take him. So we brought him to the whale area, and he was in the back area, that B section, the smaller place of the pool, on the other side of the gate. The minute Toki saw him, they immediately were face to face through that gate, calling to one another. We removed the visual barrier, and then so she was in love with this baby, and he was only 3 years old. He was almost the age she was when she was kidnapped. And we opened those gates about 2 weeks later, and instantly, me and him, and she was twice his size, swam in a mother-calf formation around that pool for hours. And we just allowed her and him to spend as much time together as they wanted. This was before the bad management came in. We actually had good people for a while managing that part. But she fell in love with that baby, and she cared for him like she was his mother. And it was so sad for me because I recognized, even at my naive age, in my early 20s, that we denied her the ability to have a baby. We took that away from her and brought her into this place, you know. And so when this calf showed up, he needed a mother figure, and she was there for him. She needed to nurture him, and they had such a beautiful, loving relationship. It still you know, it still makes me feel so sad and happy. It's a weird emotion because the maternal instinct that she had with him was divine. It was so beautiful. Sadly, he was already compromised. He had been on the beach for hours before he was rescued. His lungs had been damaged. So he was only with us about 3 years. He passed away, and she was there for that. So the sadness that she had to go through and the loss is devastating. But she also showed that she had a depth of love that she carried with her. She gave it to animals and to her other poolmates and to people like myself, and I've always felt so honored to be in her presence because the depth of love that she had was endless, really. So I just wanted to share that little story about, his name was Cookie, by the way.
Thank you, Marcia. It's time for Q&A. For Raydell, for Marcia, for me, for Trevor, for anybody, if you'd like to. Yes.
Didn't I hear one time that somebody played a recording of the family at the pool and she reacted?
Very good point, thank you. Yes, Dateline NBC in 1995 played a recording which was made by Ken, my brother Ken Balcom, in Harrow Strait on a moonlit, flat, calm night in 1995, which is when they were at their peak. 98, give or take, orcas, southern residents, in Harrow Strait, having a party. I mean, I'm talking, you know, reading and chattering. I've got the recordings. Do we have the recordings?
She brought it up.
There's a little clip of that.
Okay, where do I hit? Where's the clip?
I don't have the clip, I just have that little snippet right there on the left where she's listening.
Oh, there it is, yeah, okay. Well, that's the visual. That was her response to the recording, which was her family having a party that she had not heard since 1970. So 25 years later, first time she gets to hear it, she came, I mean, she was gonna climb into the box. And, you know, she leaned right over into it. So she responded, she recognized that, no doubt about it. And she was making those same calls. So thanks for bringing that up.
Am I remembering correctly that very shortly after she passed, the super pod came back together?
Oh, good. Thank you, because you're not quite remembering correctly because it was the day before she passed, which is all the more amazing. And I can only describe what happened. And you all have to come to your own conclusions, but the synchronicity is just beyond belief. Something connected. This was August 17th. She died on the 18th. And on August 17th, none of us here knew what was going on in Miami at all. I happened to be stuck in a waiting room, and I saw that there were whales on the live film webcam on San Juan Island, live webcam. So, okay, I'll tune in. And I saw these whales doing these really strange things. And, you know, I've been observing orcas since the early 80s. I've never seen this kind of behavior. It was writhing, it was non-directional, it was kind of chaotic, but all at the same pace. Sometimes there'd be a spy hop, sometimes it'd be a sideways whale. They kind of would bump into each other, but they weren't really coordinated. And that went on for about 3 hours in one place. One thing about orcas, they don't stay in one place for 3 hours, almost never. And this was probably 25 or 30, but for 3 hours, they were doing these strange behaviors. And I couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me at all at the time. The next day, I hear that she passed away. At about 1 o'clock Miami time. And so she was in her last hours. She was struggling to stay alive, and her family came in from the Pacific. I mean, they had been way out on the western end of Strait of Juan de Fuca, and we hadn't seen them for months. And
Where did they have the super farm?
that,
Where did they gather?
that right off the west side of San Juan Island is where they came together. For that day, and then the next day, when she actually died, they remained right along the west side of San Juan Island, and L-25 Ocean Sun separated herself and went off a quarter mile from her family, and she was just seen all by herself. That itself is highly unusual. She's the matriarch. She's the central figure of certainly Alpine and all the rest. So she went off by herself. I can't explain it. Science doesn't go there. But somehow it looked like, I can say, it looked like they knew. They felt it. They felt her spirit departing. And they were grieving, or they were ceremonially commemorating. I can't even begin to interpret. It's beyond my understanding. But that's what happened. So yeah, that happened.
What has become of her remains?
What has become of her remains?
We negotiated with Eduardo, or the owner of Miami Seafaring. We had asked them to have her whole to come back because our people, we don't cremate. But by the time I got to Miami, it was 4 p.m. that next day. If you remember the news clips, they took her by a refrigerated semi within hours up to the University of Georgia, and they started the necropsy right away. So by the time I got there, my flight had no Wi-Fi for 6 hours, which is really unusual, right? So by the time I get there, I'm talking to our tribal chairman, and he says, no, they've started the necropsy. And I said, well, I've got to get to the University of Georgia and drum and pray. If they won't let me in, I'll stand outside the door as close as I can get and pray. Well, the necropsy took quite a long time. And so when Eduardo responded to us, it was, do you want her back in 13 barrels, or do you want to cremate it? So he said, we want to cremate it. So it's 300 pounds of ashes. They had to make a special cremation box that could hold her. And myself and one of our councilwomen flew back to Georgia, went to the crematory, and in our way, we escorted her home. The owner hired a Learjet. We flew her into Bellingham. We kept her at a funeral home under lock and key. And then we made arrangements with our spiritual leader to only 7 mummies on the boat to go out to our place of creation and return her ashes back to the sea and feed her family salmon and pray to ancestors in gratitude that we were able to bring her back. Not the way we intended, but we brought it back.
Thank you for that question. questions, curiosity? Yes.
I was curious about the one, the football team owner, baseball team owner, how did he get involved in it?
Jim Irsay. Jim Irsay, he has passed away, but he owned the Indianapolis Colts, and he just appeared upon the scene because he had fallen in love with her. That's all I could explain it by. He went to see Aquarium, he saw her, and you know, maybe he's, you know, had a few idiosyncrasies. You know, he collected rock stars' guitars, you know, he did interesting things. But it was a deep commitment in his heart to bring her home. So he said, yeah, 20 million, no problem. I'll do it. And he arranged for the location on Cypress Island, or he certainly facilitated that. I don't know the whole process, but anyway, that problem was solved by him. It was all paid for. So that's usually the biggest problem. Who's going to pay for it? Well, yes, Renee.
Well, we had already formed a nonprofit out of Key West called Friends of Toki. And Pritam Singh at the very beginning put $1 million up to get vets just for her and her own trainers to take care of her, increase her quality of food, you know, clean her cool her water and clean her air. Well, Pritam made it known, and it went out into the world and the universe that his million was almost gone. It was $750,000 already spent. And so he said, that was my personal money. I can't do any more than that. We have to find someone else that will fund moving her, building a sanctuary, and taking care of her. Jim Irsay and his harpoon. And he saw that can't be, then he heard about Toki, and he was compelled and reached out, you know, to the nonprofit and said, yeah, I'm gonna bring her home. You know, whatever it takes, I'm gonna bring her home. And so we had the site in East Sound already picked. We'd done hydrophone testing to make sure that her calls in this spot wouldn't go out past that protected area to her family. NOAA and DNR here in the state were all afraid that she would call them all home and try to break her out. But because we did the acoustic testing in all those areas, we could affirm, you know, scientifically that her calls didn't travel outside of that protected area. So we had blessed the site, we had the plan made, it had been coffee shopped around to state and federal agencies with green light. Everything was going to be expedited. So here's the interesting thing. We have the site, we have agencies, federal and state. She got a green light just 2 weeks before we were doing stretcher training, and she passes. I called on Monday, she was fine. She gets sick Wednesday, sicker Thursday, dies Friday morning. Doesn't make sense to me.
Or me.
And no one's seen the necropsy.
And there has not been a necropsy report made public. There's been a 2-page editorial summary that speculates about kidney damage or kidney problems. But, and, you know, it says old age, although a week before she was just full of vitamin vigor. So, it doesn't make sense to me. You see it?
I can speak on a little bit of it. And, you know, I was under NDA for a long time, didn't talk about anything. Now I think I'm free of that, so I'd like to speak out a little bit about that. So, you know, back in 2022, Toki got sick with a lung infection, and I wasn't around at that period. I hadn't seen her since the late 90s. I did actually see her in 2012 for a short visit, but anyway. So it's believed that they were pressure washing either the stadium or something like that, which is a no-no around animals that breathe like killer whales, and because particles go flying around in the air, it's likely that she inhaled some kind of bacterium from them pressure washing around the area. At any rate, she had a lung infection. They tried all kinds of medication, and people from Friends of Toki had gone in there in 2022 and saved her life at that point with some serious medication. So a drug called ferropenem had to be sourced from Japan. It's not even FDA approved in this country for her for that lung infection, which caused amazing improvement. She went from very ill to very well pretty quickly. Problem came that the vets could not decide, when do we stop the ferropenem? If they stopped the drug, the infection would come back. So Toki died from renal failure, and it's my view from being there through that entire process that those drugs were so powerful that it affected her kidneys. So in our efforts to save her life with a drug, we wound up causing her, the problem that killed her. We loved her to death, eventually, is what happened. And, I hate to say that, but in our efforts to give her, this was a drug that was extremely powerful. It kills superbugs, like, these things that antibiotics can't touch. But it had caused that infection to be almost encased in her lung. So it wasn't spreading infection anymore. But the vets, when you have a panel of 6 or 8 vets, they can't even agree on what day it is. So you get them to agree, when do we take her off of this? It's my view that she was left on it just a little bit too long. If they would have been able to make a decision a little earlier, maybe it wouldn't have affected her kidneys that much. But people were out there saying that Toki was poisoned intentionally, and that there was all this, terrible behavior, and that she was killed for insurance money and all these other things. And I have to assure everyone that that is not the case. She was loved. We tried our best. I was able to spend 4 months with her. My goal was to move with her to Cypress Island and spend the rest of my days caring for her in that sea pen. And it was a devastating loss, and I'm still not mentally okay after all of that. But I want everybody to know that everyone that was involved with her care and their Jim Irsay had the money. We had the great vets. We had the best caregivers we could possibly get. We failed. We failed her all the way around, but it wasn't that we didn't try. We tried really hard. And it's heartbreaking what happened, but I think that in our efforts to keep that infection down, if you take too much of it, any kind of medication, it has side effects, and that's what happened to her.
Thank you, Marcia. You were there. You were closer than any of us. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
We know that Marcia got to go back and spend the last of Toki's life with her and be there for months. And for Toki, she knew when Marcia got there, she was like, here's my old best friend. And it was a dream of ours to have Marcia go back. Just imagine how Toki felt, because she was the best friend. And to me, that really helped, knowing that Marcia was with her. And I really love to thank Marcia for that. And that helped me knowing you were right there with her. And I really thank you enough for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. honor to be there with her. If I had to do it all over again, and as heartbreaking as it was, I would do it in a heartbeat. She deserves so much more, you know. So, and I really want to just, I'm going to probably leave here in a moment. It's getting a little late here. I want to thank all of you guys for being there. And I'm sure you're having the Toki effect. It happens to all of us. Thank you for supporting Howard and Susan and the team and this exhibit. And it's going to grow, and share it with everybody you know so we can help save Toki's family. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Guys.
Thank you. Was she the only person besides the vets that was there when?
No, there was, there were others, people there. I don't know all of the cleaners, but she was right with her up to her last heartbeat. I mean, she was racing.
We have some of Marcia's books that talk about,
That's right.
about her last.
We have 2 books by Garcia over there. Any more to talk about? Well, we can go back to munchies and mingle.
Something more fun. It's on a lighter note. I wanted to, go ahead.
So not to end on that note, what good things have happened since Toki's passing, and what are you looking forward to that you're working on?
It's in there.
There are new babies. There are new babies.
Well, there's a new J5 baby, J63, born in April, so there are actually 74. There will be a new official count in about 2 days that will say that. But anyway, they're holding steady. They've been at low to mid-70s for about 6 years. So they're holding steady. They're finding something out on the west end of Wanapuka, and Swiftsure Bank is down the coast. So there's still hope. They're holding on.
And we have hope for the future, and I know she's wiping her eyes, but I want to call out Natalie Sanderson, who has done some amazing things. She has started a Roots and Shoots program for orcas through the Goodall Roots and Shoots program. She's written 1 book, 2 books, 2 books now that are for sale here. She started her own nonprofit. You're in what now, 8th grade or going to 9th grade? She has just been an awesome young woman, and I was just talking to her and saying she was going in water quality testing project they're doing, and I've got a retired neuroscientist person I'm going to put her in touch with, and I just told her how she is what makes all the work we do worth it, knowing that we can touch young people like her who start their own nonprofit, and like Lynn Fletcher, who was like 6 when she saw Blackfish and asked how they questioned, and now has graduated and has done similar things to Natalie, and that's what makes it all worth it and gives us hope. So I just want to thank Natalie for all she's done and leave on that.